Hello and welcome everybody to episode number 26 of the Wind Dummies podcast, Oz Talk version. I'm Smitty, joined by my co-host, Ronaldo Unruh. Ronnie, what's happening, man?
What's up, buddy? 26 of these. We've been doing this thing for I think we are just talking about that. Talking about
Three
third third
years?
third third version of some of this stuff we're going to talk about. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, and it's always fun to think back how we started with Gerbs and all of that, and Lucas for a little bit. Now, now they trust me with the controls, so
Scary
we'll see.
proposition, but it's working out so far.
Hey, it's fun. It's fun. So we're gonna have a fun show tonight. We're gonna talk a little bit about KDJ food drives, when and where you can play them. We're gonna talk about the KDJ kickoffs coming up on March the 1st. And then we're gonna bring in the grumpiest of the grumps, Buddy Kassner. And I can't wait to listen to him tell some stories.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun. So yeah, we'll talk about it here after a while. But Bud's one of the first people I ever met in the disc golf scene, and that was not just a couple of days ago. So
Hard to believe you came back if Bud was your first guy. Maybe he wasn't so grumpy then. So yeah, dude. Well, let's pay the bills. Let's talk
yeah,
about the KJ stuff and let's get this show rolling. So
food drive time, man. Food drive time.
yes, sir. So, well, we've already had 4 food drives. We had the Wichita food drive back in the very end of December. We had the Anthony Lake food drive. We've had a food drive at Horse Thief Canyon. And then we had a food drive just this last week out at Clap. And you and I both participated in that. Woo!
It was quite a time. Actually ended up being more fun than I kind of thought it was going to be. As much fun as we could have trouncing around through a foot of snow. But I think we raised about $1,000 for some veterans, which obviously is the whole reason we play these food drives. So that was cool. And but yeah, I mean, we got out there and toughed it out for a few hours, and we made it through.
I think we both threatened to quit at least twice.
I'm certainly guilty of that, and I had a nice bowl of chili when we were done to ease all the pain. So
yes, sir. So a few food drives coming up. Got to see them here on the screen. We have Wellington out at Stu's Funny Farms. That's a place you don't get to play very often. So if you want to head down there, Pee Wee, I think, has shared the directions on the KDJ page somewhere.
Yep.
The following week, we have 2 on one day by Mr. Working Team. I think you start over in Concordia and play there, and then you make the short trip into Miltonville. We got the Loft that Sunday in Chapman. So, that'll be fun. I saw he's giving away, I think it was a big smoker or something as a top raffle prize. He always goes in and bugs the local businesses and comes out with some good stuff.
Yeah, they had some good stuff like that last year too, and they had a huge raffle, so that's great.
Yep. If you're old or if you're just unemployed, you can go play the Clearwater Food Drive on a Wednesday at 10.
I tell you what, man, it sounds like is that Kansas Day? Is that
That's why he wanted it.
Yeah,
you get to play on the trail there that runs through the park.
If I'm in town, I think I might hit that, but I got a feeling I might be in St. Louis that week, which is going to not be awesome.
Well, I'll tell you, lunch at Leahy's, Ladina will make a feast, and it would be worth maybe even skipping school. So that could happen. And then start off February, we got 3 of them on the 1st. We have Little Apple, we have Stockton, which is a Lake Webster, and then the one I'll probably hit in Winfield, playing at Island Park. That's always fun.
Always a big popular one is playing at Island. We only get to do it one time a year. So
yeah, if we get good weather, it could be the top attended tournament pretty easily. I think. Yeah. I know there's a lot of people that like going there. We got Lions on that Sunday, and then we're headed to Garden City, Harrington, Dodge City, and Emporia, and that will be all the food drives before our next show. So And for those of you that don't know the food drives, how they work out, the KDJ purchases all of the Frisbees with the help of oh, a large group of amazing sponsors, which drives the price of the disc down. And all that we ask is, first of all, that you pay what we pay for the discs, $6.25. And the rest of that entry fee goes to some kind of a food charity of the TD's choice. So all participants get a disc, $30. A lot of times there'll be potlucks and chili cook-offs and just hanging out and having fun. And the idea is just to have a kind of a low-key fun round. So
yeah, it's generally not ultra competitive type golf. You still get 10 points. You get 10 KG points just for showing up. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to be one of the guys who wants to hoist that trophy come the end of the year, you better hit some of these, because those 10 points times however many times you go add smooth up. And a lot of the guys who have snuck in there and won some Kassner Cups that we'll talk about here in just a little bit, that's a big part of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And just around the corner after the food drives are the KJ kickoffs. You and I just looked. We've been doing this format this will be the third year that we've ran it this way. You can see here, I just took a snippet of a spreadsheet that Kevin shared with me. We have the Little River Food Drive ran by Kevin and Darren. Beloit, Salina, Garden City, Manhattan, Hayes, Wichita, and Pratt are all running KDJ food drives, kickoffs. Just like the food drives, if you go and play around at one of these kickoffs, you'll earn 10 KDJ points. Also, we hope to have this year's discs that Tate and his artist are working on the art, and we're going to get those ordered as quickly as we can. Hopefully you'll have the shirts, which will feature Tate, and then a pin of some sort or whatever little trinket that we do to hang off of your bag. So as always, you can pay $30 and get everything, the shirt, the disc, the pin, all the meals, the point trace, all that. You can go the cheaper route, and I don't remember if it's 10 or 15, but I think it's 15.
I think that's right. Yeah.
To which you get the points, the pin, and all the meals. So, if you play your cards right, you can sign up for the KDJ one time and never have to pay again as long as you go to the finals.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge advantage, right? Another reason to get out there and hit as many events as you possibly can throughout the year, because I mean, you can get into the finals, get your KDGA membership paid for the next year, and yeah, I the last couple of years I've had to make some stuff happen to be able to get to the KDGA finals, but I wasn't gonna. I'm not. Maybe I'm cheap, or maybe it's just I felt like I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to spend that $30 again. I had to make my way up to Salina. So.
Well, my gallbladder kept me out this year, so I'm going to
be $30 poorer here before too much longer.
They might cut me a deal.
I don't know, man. I think that might be some insider trading type stuff. I might have to protest if that's the case.
Okay, I'm down with that. So kickoff season just around the corner. We still have room for a few more. If somebody wants to run one, that would be great. We'd love to divvy out the stuff. And I was just at Mace's house last night, boxing up some food drive stuff and getting that ready to go out. And we were chit-chatting a little bit, and he brought to my attention that Dennis and the Harrington crew had asked for a little course improvement fund for Father Padilla. So just a reminder that the KDJ does have a matching course improvement fund up to $500, as long as you can provide receipts and let us know what it's going to be used for. I don't know that we've turned anybody down. You can't use it on baskets. You can't use it on new courses. So, yeah, just something to think about as well. Final thing on KDGA, and then we can bring in Bud. Kevin and Adkins really worked their rear ends off to add all these new divisions that you see in the green to the KDGA points race. In the red is what we previously had, and mainly Kevin, the number cruncher, felt the need to really expand on this, add some new divisions. He thought there was a need for it in places. So there we go. The KDGA divisions have looks like almost tripled, at least doubled.
Yeah, for sure doubled, if not tripled. And yeah, if you're anywhere from a junior under the age of 12 to someone as old as Buddy Kassner, you got a division ready made for you.
Yes, sir. And I don't know if we might end up with a few smaller divisions, but 1/3 of every, and well, all the ways people can qualify, this is going to get more people into the finals, I would think. I don't know off the top of my head all the ins and outs of qualifying, but hey, should do it. Should let them get in.
That's all right. Mr. Newfeld's going to keep us more than abreast of everyone who's looking to get in, and how all that's going to work as the year goes on. So he's our points guru, and we'll bring him in a few times this year for sure, and have him update everything.
Yes, sir. So before we bring Bud in, I just want to remind everybody, if you want to put a comment for Bud and you want it to show up on the screen and have us talk to Bud about that, if you will leave that comment on the live stream in YouTube on the Disc and Deals channel where you're watching this, you should be able to chat. I can then add that straight to the screen, and we can see, and Buddy can squint and we can see what's going on. So I think it's time to bring the guy in. What do you say?
Let's do it, man.
All right, here he comes.
Hey,
over here where they put the stars. What's up, Bud?
I'm here.
Yes, you are, and we're glad to have you.
Glare off the forehead ain't too bad now, is it?
Nope, it'll be just fine.
I got a dim switch on that light. I need to.
Nope, you're fantastic.
Looking great.
So, anywho, Bud, I think you've been pre-warned a little bit about how this works.
I watched a couple of the early ones, and then I just forget you're ever on.
Well, thanks. We love you too.
So I know I know a few of the questions. I've tried to answer them in my head. Last year, I couldn't even come up with the answers on those, but I'll give it a shot.
You're dang right you will. So we start the show every time with the same 3 questions. Ronnie's 3 from the tee. Are you ready, Bud? Here we go.
I can always say I ain't talking. I can always turn this thing off. I got an off button.
There's the button we know and love.
Like I said, I thought about them.
Here we go.
All right, Bud. Question number 1. Do you remember your first disc, and do you still have it?
Okay, now this is going to be a long story.
Perfect. I got my drink right here. We're good to go.
Well, I guess just to start off, I'll tell you why I'm a disc golfer. I lived to play Frisbee, but I never knew enough guys. I didn't grow up in a big city where they had ultimates. So playing Frisbee meant you threw the disc back and forth to each other. You either tried to throw it to them where they could catch it, or you tried to make them run as far as they could to catch it. But yeah, I love throwing the Frisbee. I met my wife. She lived in Oklahoma City in 1982. And we'd go back and forth. I'd drive down there. She'd come up here. So one beautiful fall day, 1982, Saturday, she had to go to work. And I didn't know anybody in Oklahoma City except a couple of her girlfriends I'd met. So I said, what am I going to do? Well, there's a park down the street called Will Rogers Park. And I drove over there, and they had a bandstand, outside bandstand Saturday. They had a band playing. I'm sitting up there on the bleacher watching this band, and across the water canal that ran through that park, I see a guy walking by, and he throws a Frisbee. And then he just walks off. Nobody throws it back. I thought, well, that's pretty weird. Must be an Okie thing. So a few minutes later, here comes a group, 3 or 4 people. And one guy throws a Frisbee. Another guy over here throws a Frisbee. And then they all just walk off again. And I can't see nothing but that little spot I'm looking at. So the band quits playing. I said, I'm going to drive around the park, get in the car, drive around over the canal. And the first thing I see is this metal pole hole. That's what it is now. I knew what it is. And these people were standing around trying to throw their disc in it. So that's something different. You know, I'd never seen nothing like that. So I drive up to the parking lot, get out, a bunch of people standing around. It's a beautiful Saturday day. You can imagine how busy it was. And I happened to have a Frisbee in the car. I always had a Frisbee in the back of the car. So the guy says, yeah, you just got to, this is first tee, trying to throw it down there to that basket. And so I grabbed my disc. I had to jump in with a few other people because a lot of them standing around waiting to tee off. So I throw my disc down there, and I noticed some of these other people have these discs that have numbers on them. So well, those things are flying a little better than my little Frisbee's flying. So I get back up by the parking lot, and I said, where do you guys get these Frisbees you guys are throwing? And he said, that guy over there in the car has them in the back of his trunk. So that's the first disc I ever bought. Guy named Stan in the parking lot at Will Rogers selling discs. And of course, they were Midnight Flyers, 1982. And that was my first disc. And no, I don't still have it because a few months later, sometime during the next 6 months or so, I saw a lot of these guys have tubes. I see why you might throw one in the canal or the creek. Not a bad idea to have another one. So I actually had 2 Midnight Flyers at one time. And I just threw them underneath the seat in the back of my truck. So, a few years later, she moved to Wichita and we got married, and we was going down there to see one of her friends. I said, I want to go over there and play that Frisbee golf again. That was fun. Couldn't find my discs. They disappeared out of the truck. Well, I lived in a trailer park out there by Goddard, and things disappeared out there. And of course, I never locked the truck or nothing. Why would anybody want a couple of Frisbees? So I had to go get another one. I said, well, that guy might be in the parking lot. If not, Fred's Market was right across hole 5. You could go over there and buy discs. Because anytime you played Will Rogers after hole 5, you walked over to Fred's Market and got a drink. And then, because if you didn't, you'd get all out of order because everybody else did the same thing. So you kind of followed the crowd to the market. Then you went back to the next hole. So I went over there, and I don't know if I bought it there or Stan was still in the park, because Stan was always in the parking lot selling his disc. So I bought they had a new disc. They called it an Arrow. It had a Champion logo across the front, and it was different. It had a funky rim on it, a lot different than that Midnight Flyer. So I got that. I said, well, this must be a better disc than that Flyer was. I couldn't throw it worth a crap. It was I'd still get the old Frisbee out and play it sometimes. And I only had a chance to play 1 or 2 times with that, but I still have that disc. Well, actually, I gave it to Duck. He opened up his shop and he was putting stuff up on the wall. So I said, I ain't playing with this thing no more. So I'll let you hang it up on your wall. So that's when my second disc I ever got. They ended up calling it an Eagle, I guess. But the guy who sold it to me said it was an Arrow. That's around 84, 85. Well, I probably didn't use it again. I probably played with it once or twice because didn't have any reason to go back to Will Rogers or anywhere. Never saw another pole hole anywhere. Fast forward 1988, I'd moved to where I'm at now in North Riverside, worked downtown. They tore out the bridge. I had to cross the bridge at 18th Street to go down Waco to work downtown. They tore the bridge out to rebuild it. I had to start driving through Riverside Park. So February morning, Tuesday, I remember this real well, driving through Riverside Park on a Tuesday morning going to work, and right there on the side of the road, there's a golf basket. I thought, what the hell? Riverside Park's got a disc golf basket in it. But I couldn't wait, man. Lunchtime, I got in the car, ran right over there to the parking lot at Riverside, and sure enough, there was Mark Jennings standing there with some other people. City people were there. They just put the things in the ground the day before and were finishing it up that day. I said, well, I'll be back right after work, Mark. I got a disc at home. I'll be right back. But then I noticed when I got back, the few guys that were there, Mark and some other guys, they had different discs. They weren't playing with that Eagle or Arrow. They had some actual golf discs, similar to what, they started making. This was 88. So I said, where'd you get those discs? And he said, that guy over there in the park, in the car, has them in the trunk of his car. It was the exact same guy, Stan. So I was buying this from Stan at Riverside Park, 6 years after I bought one from him in Oak City. So I thought it was pretty cool. And I guess he was quite a legend down there in Oklahoma. And they said he even came up and helped lay out the holes and stuff. And Mark Jennings went to school in OU. He was a local guy, but he was an OU grad. So that's how he knew about disc golf. And I don't know the connections, but he was involved in getting the money from Wendy's and whoever had the money and talked the city into putting it in. But that's when I met Mark. You said that was one of the questions. I met Mark that day, the first day I ever played golf in Wichita. And I was down in Riverside Park pretty much every day after that. It was just 2 minutes down the street from me and couldn't beat it. I thought, this is great. Met a lot of guys.
Did you look for disc golf when you came back from Oklahoma, from Will Rogers? Did you like?
I thought this was just an Okie thing. I didn't know anybody down in Oklahoma, so I didn't talk to anybody. One thing I did do, though, in '83, I'd thrown, maybe 3 or 4 rounds at Will Rogers and the radio station. That was back when you had to listen to the radio to hear any music. And so the rock and roll station called the Cat 100 in Oak City, I'd tune it in when I'd get close enough to get reception. And they started talking about a Frisbee golf event that was coming up on a Saturday in a week or so. So that might be neat. I'll check that out if Becky will let me get away for a few minutes. And go over there to Will Rogers on a fall morning, Saturday, 200 people. They had no idea what was going on. They weren't expecting nothing like that. So they had a guy up there on the little stage that was telling people what was going on. They were scrambling, what are we going to do with all these people? But a guy in a cat costume, a mascot from the radio station, had a stack of these Orange Crush preemies he was tossing out to the crowd. And I'm standing off to the side out of the way. One goes up and hits a tree limb above me and falls down right on me. So I got a flyer. I still had that midnight flyer then in '83, and now I've got an Orange Crush premium disc. I had 2 discs. So they said, well, we can't put up 200 people out here on this course, so we got another one of these golf courses on the other side of town, Woodson Park. And they said, half of you got to drive down there if you're going to play. Oh, boy. No idea. So I'm one of the group that gets to drive to Woodson Park, blind, throwing it blind. It was longer holes, wide open, terrible golf course. I think I did go back. I got to where I couldn't throw that flyer into the wind, so I was throwing that Orange Crush half the time, and it wasn't going nowhere either. So I went back. I think I played the Will Rogers course again that afternoon. But there wasn't no payout or anything. It was just a promotional deal. But I saw something I thought was really funny that day. We were standing around in the crowd, and most of the people were like me, had a disc in their hand. That's all it was about. A lot of people probably never even played the game. But this one dude, long-haired dude, had a backpack. I said, this guy must live in the park. Look at him. He looked pretty rough. And if I looked over at his bag, and he must have had 6 or 8 discs at least in that bag, all flyers. And I just thought that was the stupidest thing. Why would anybody walk around with a bag full of discs? You only need one. They're all the same. So I just thought that was pretty funny. It must be a Noki thing. Have a bag full of discs. Walk around the park. Now look at us. You guys walk around with 30 discs.
Whole cart.
Yeah.
So many we have to have a cart.
But I don't know if that answered the question, but
I think it answered it well.
I lost the flyers, but that Eagle Arrow disc is somewhere in Duck's possession, or unless he sold it. I don't know. But
no, I think it's at the Oak store. I think
there's one like it hanging on the wall over here at Riverside, but it's not mine. Mine has my name on it. Mine was pretty rough. I threw it enough that it was pretty beat up.
There's a bunch on the wall in his office. That's I'll tell you what, bud. We've been doing this for over 2 years, and I think that's my favorite first disc story.
My favorite part about it is the guy I bought my first one from. I was buying them again from him 6 years later in Wichita.
That's crazy. Well, did he move here, or was it just
no, they brought him up. Jennings got a hold of him and said, hey, we were trying to put a golf course in, and he was supposedly somebody that had experience. He'd been around a while.
Well, it's a good segue, bud. You know who was the guy you got Frisbees from when I first started playing?
Well, if you got him out of the clubhouse at Herman Hill, I guess. I don't know who else had him back then.
You, right out of the back of the Ford. That was selling them out of the pickup on league nights. That was where you got Frisbees from.
Oh yeah, we had a whole box. Must have been 20 discs that the club owned that we were trying to sell. And you know what we was paying for those discs? We got them from a guy in Harrington, and he was charging us $4.25, and we sold them for $4.50.
Yeah,
to club members.
I think it was $5 if you wasn't a club member.
Yeah, 5 was max. But yeah, and that's the only reason I got to play disc golf. Really, is I could tell my wife, "Oh, this don't cost much." You know, I got a $5 disc, and we paid $5 every Wednesday to play league. And that was something I could do without having to justify the cost. But that was the day I met Mark Jennings. Was the Tuesday at Herman Hill Park in February, and not Herman Hill Riverside Park.
I think you made his day with your story.
We spent a lot of time together.
He said, "Stan the man."
Yeah.
I think everybody's named Stan is Stan the man, because my dad was Stan the man for as long as I can remember. So,
I guess he's passed away. I've talked to some Okies, told them kind of that story, and they said, yeah, he was around for a long time, but I guess he's not around now.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
All right, Ronnie.
On to question number 2. Bud, you get a dream card. You get to take four old boys with you, or ladies. Anybody, anytime, anywhere, anybody you want.
I've heard you ask this right from the start to other people, and so I try to, come up with mine a year or two back. I never could come up with 5 people, even 4. I could come up with 10, but I couldn't come up with 4. I'm sure a lot of guys have said something like that. It's hard to just narrow it down. But one thing, the first one I really thought of would be on there, and I was just shocked because when Harvey was on, he said the exact same guy, Brad Packett, the Pac-Man, out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Nicest guy ever. Passed away way too early. But that guy used to show up at Beloit, make ice cream for everybody. He'd come to Saline. He came to the Frizz 3 or 4 times. Wasn't much happening in Nebraska back then. So he was more than happy to drive down here to Kansas and hang out with those guys. Just one of the nicest guys ever. You want me to name somebody else?
Well,
as many as you want to, or don't. You can name 30 for all I care.
Another guy that I don't think he's dead. I hope he's not dead. Peter Shive. You guys know who Peter Shive is?
Yeah, I know Peter Shive.
He had 11 years on me, so he was an old guy when he started playing golf. He was in his 50s, college professor out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. But he started showing up in the summer, some of our events. Same thing. There was nothing happening out there in Colorado or Wyoming or nothing. So I remember playing with him at Shunganunga one time. A few other events. I don't know if he ever made it to Hayes, but just the nicest guy. I got to play with him a few times later. And he's won I don't know how many, 10, 11, 12 world championships. When he
won a lot of them.
Yep.
He won every year. But I remember when he was just starting out, he wasn't as good as the rest of us at first, but he got good in a hurry. He was committed to it. Peter Shive, yeah. What's that, 2?
That's 2.
It'd be real easy. I've played so many rounds with guys like Harv and Rich. Every tournament we'd play together. So I'm trying to think of guys that don't get a chance to play with anymore, or I'd like to play with again. One of the best guys, I got to play a few rounds. Of course, I was never in his division. Crazy John. Crazy John was just an unbelievable guy to play golf with. And I think the only reason Crazy doesn't have more titles is he was a showman. Crazy wanted to show off, entertain. He was an entertainer. And he would do it competitive round. He would still pull out some of the craziest shots. Why are you doing that? Because I want to do it, The one I remember, one of them, Herman Hill Park, hole 15, wind was howling across the river out of the south, and people were trying to throw it down the tunnel there on 15. He threw the thing straight over the river, straight out over the river as hard as he could into that wind. And that thing came down about 10 or 15 feet from the pin when it landed. He knew exactly what he was doing, but when he launched that thing out over the water into that headwind, I thought, oh my God, this guy's crazy. And he was crazy. But I got to play a few other rounds with him off and on during the Oz tour. And it's a shame he he never got the recognition he really deserved because he was a good golfer.
Was he the same time as Climo, or was he pre-Climo?
He was pre-Climo, but he was still around when Climo was playing. Like I said, crazy. You'd see him on the results somewhere in the top 5 a lot of times, in there in the running. But he went for it. He went for everything. He ran the putts.
I've seen an old video of a Worlds that featured Crazy and Mitch, a youngster from Oklahoma, Mitch McClellan.
Those guys did
Climo
win.
was on that or not?
Those guys did win world doubles together as a team.
I imagine they'd be a tough team to beat.
Crazy and Mitch did?
Yeah. There was a cover, the Disc Golf magazine that was come out every so often. They was the cover shot the year they won. Those two guys walking down the fairway together.
That would be
I had that copy.
Amazing round just to watch.
I gave that copy to Mitch a few years back. I gave it to him. He said, "Oh, I've got a bunch of them copies already." And Mitch was another guy that I've got to play with a lot in Winfield. You got to know him, and we went down to his place in Norman a time or two, and he was a real good host down there. But I got to know Mitch pretty good since he's moved up to Winfield. And he was my doubles partner at Frizz for 5 or 6 years or whatever, 3 or 4, I don't know. But I don't know if I'd put him in my top 5, mainly because he's somebody I've played a lot of golf with lately. But how many more do I need?
You need at least one more, but I think that's what the second or third time that someone's mentioned Crazy. I know
Randy Brown,
RB, Harv might have.
Deuce, I think mentioned Crazy.
He might have as well. So yeah, there was.
He had such a personality and outgoing that you wanted to be around him. You wanted to play with him. Plus, he was going to see something. Chances are you were going to see something you wouldn't see very often. So,
and you're third from the tee, and I am looking forward to this one.
Oh, I'm done naming people.
No, not unless you're done.
Do you have one?
Well, I didn't have anybody special. Like I said, there's a lot of people I've played golf with that I miss. I'd like to play again. Guys in Colorado and Brent Edwards. You guys ever know who Brent Edwards was? Tall Indian dude out of Norman.
Oh, yeah.
Good buddies. He passed away about 10 or 15 years back. Mitch started calling his little event the Brent Edwards Memorial. He was a real stand-up dude, really good guy. There was a guy that showed up at the Frizz every so often, most years, Father Dave. He wore a robe like a monk, and he would walk around the Frizz all week with a robe that's what we call him. We didn't know his name. It was Father Dave. So this tournament I used to go to in Colorado, I'm sitting out there. A lot of the people camped a little by the course there. He showed up at that one time because he had heard about it being an event that you wanted to go to. And he didn't have his Father Dave robe. He just was himself then. And then we'd sit around the campfire and talk. He was quite a guy. Not so much as a golfer, just one of those guys you really like to hang around and hear his stories. And he passed away early. And I looked up his it was a story, obituary type thing. Somebody down in San Antonio is where he lived. And he was quite a renaissance. He was into all kinds of stuff. You wouldn't have any idea. But his claim to fame was his toes were that long. He had the longest dang toes. And when we was doing distance competition at the Frizz field events, he would hook that thing into his bare foot and just whip his foot out with that disc in it, and that thing would go over 100 feet easily. World record with the throw. World record throw with the foot. But you had to have freaky toes to do that. Something you had to see to believe.
That's crazy.
One of those people, you're sorry to see him leave because you just lost a good one there. Yeah, it'd be real easy to say guys like Rich and Harv and guys I've played golf with forever and they're still around. I've got a grandson I played some golf with for a while. I'd like to be able to play with him again sometime. I don't know if he's into it anymore.
Well, I'm sure he'll still take all your discs if you let him.
He can buy his own disc now.
Where is he at these days? I don't
Nashville.
know.
Nashville. Little Bo is 7 months old now. He's married with a kid. So I'm a great grandpa now.
Great grandpa Bud now, huh?
Grandpa Bud.
Well, maybe that little turd will come back someday and we can all see him.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Johnny in a long, long time.
I might have to drive to Nashville to see him.
You got to drive all the way.
He was the same age as Ronnie's boys, Cam and Nick. So I can sure remember 105 degrees at Beloit, them boys walking around, 3 of them.
Man.
We kept telling them, go sit under that water fountain. Go sit under that water fountain. Cool down.
No.
I doubt they were dying near as much as we were.
Playing 3 rounds after we were done with our tournament rounds. Just go calm down. All right, Bud. We'll let you off the hook on that one. We'll ask you one that I can't wait to ask you.
I probably left some people out that I should mention, but oh well.
If you want to mention them, go ahead. I mean, there's so many, and
like I said, I've thought about this question every time you guys ask somebody else, and it's hard to come up with somebody. Or, I heard Stokely say, I want the 4 best guys in the world because that means I'm playing on the lead card, stuff like that. But I was never, ever good enough disc golfer to say I want to play with the best guys in the world. That's not what makes it fun. What's fun is the guys' personalities, how they treat you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's been and pretty much everybody's answers, other than Stokely's, has been yours, right? The guys that we've had the most fun playing with over, and it's hard to narrow it down, right? Because there's so many good people in our sport, and
I guess when you get to as many people are gone as we know now at our age, my age, not you guys, but that's what you think about. You think about the guys you'll never get to play with again. So.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, Bud, question number 3 is, what's your favorite disc golf memory? And I can't wait to hear this one.
Well, I can't remember it. That's why you're not here. That's a tough one because there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say when I won. It's those are good memories when you win. But I mentioned that golf tournament in Colorado. It's in Fraser, Colorado, right north of Winter Park. 9,000-foot elevation is called Grandma's. They call it the New Horizon Open. Guy here in Wichita that was at Riverside Park lived not too far from me at his folks' house. He was lived out of his Chevy van with his wife and kid, musician, Joel Martin. He was telling me we'd play over there at Riverside. He was showing me these discs that had a picture of a tree and a disc going through. He said, you ought to go out there to Colorado. This thing's really going on out there. That's just a heck of a lot of fun. And I was a backpacker. I used to do my summer vacation if I had a group that was going out to Colorado. So that was something I tried to do any chance I had. So I said, well, all my friends that backpack, they're all old and getting past that, married. Nobody's doing that anymore. And I always had vacation time that my wife didn't. So it wasn't no problem taking off a week every summer by myself. I convinced a couple of the local guys that didn't have jobs or nothing else to do let's go out to Colorado and check out this event. And the minute I walked onto that property on a Friday, we drove out Thursday night, finished the drive Friday morning, walked up to the property. You just felt like you was home. The people were so nice to you right away. They didn't know if they'd ever eat or not. And just the whole atmosphere in that place, plus it was in the mountains. Summertime in the mountains. I went out there 5 times, and I don't remember ever having a bad day, weather-wise, anything. Just beautiful. So my favorite memories are every time I was there. But that first time, just being there and being treated like that. And Saturday morning at the start of the tournament, Grandma Miller lived there in the summer when it was nice enough to live out in the mountains. That first time, she was probably in her mid to upper 80s. They would bring her down from her little house there. It was on the property. And she would come down there and talk to us. And it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, just listening to this lady tell you how much everybody was loved. And the property belonged to her dad, and back in the 30s, way back when, It was a place like a church camp. People would come out there in the summer. The train went through there. They would ride the train up from Denver, and they had a few little cabins and stuff out there back in the day. And it was just amazing to listen to this woman talk to us and treat everybody like they were just God's children. It was quite an experience. Couldn't wait to go back every year. But that's my favorite. Go ahead.
How many years did you go back?
I went the first year. I was trying to go through the archives and see. I guess I went in 92, and it was the 13th annual. That's how long they'd been doing this deal out there. 92 was the 13th annual, and I think I went 5 times between 92 and 98. Couldn't make it every year. But one of the best trip, I think it was the second trip out there. I took my wife's car out there, had a couple guys with me. Go to lunch Saturday. About a mile into town was the gas station where you could grab some food and some grub, pull into the gas tank, top off the tank, come out, car won't start. Nothing. Sitting there at lunchtime, need to get back out to the course, and I'm sitting there with a dead car. Don't know what to do. We pushed the car off away from the pumps. We thought, man, we're going to have to start hitching. We got to get back to the course. It's a mile out. Somebody picked us up. We started to head out, and somebody picked us up and got us out there. I just happened to have a friend, a lot younger than me, but he lived in Tabernash, right up the road from Fraser, another 5 miles. And he was letting us crash at his place. I knew his sister here in Wichita. Anyway, I said, we got to get my car. I had to get my car towed to Granby, about an 80-mile tow job out in the mountains. And he had an old pickup. He said, you guys can use my old truck. He worked right next to his house at a welding shop. You guys can drive my old truck here and get around. And we couldn't get part. The guy at the auto shop said it takes 3 days to get a part from Denver. Drove out here. Once they figured out what was wrong with it, computer issues, whatever. So we had 3 extra days out there in the mountains to drive around and play disc golf. What a blast that was. That was just so much fun. You just put that car stuff out of your mind, and there was 2 or 3 private courses there. We'd go back and play grandmas. We found some of these private courses, and most of the private courses were objects, trees, whatever they had. There weren't too many baskets. The grandma course actually didn't have baskets. They would bring in portables for the tournament. It was like a 9 or 12 holer. They would expand to 18, bring baskets in. But that was my best memory, or one of the best times I ever had. Like I said, there's a lot of others, but nothing like being in the mountains playing disc golf.
Any day in the mountains is a good day anyway. And if you're playing disc golf too, I mean, how
it was always the first Saturday or first weekend in August. And that was just, I'd always, as a backpacker, so that was the best weekend in the mountains. It was past the rainy season. Everything's thawed out, hadn't got cold yet. There was a sign there at Fraser on their highway, ice box of the nation. It was supposedly the coldest average temperature in the country. So even in the summertime, middle of the summer, it would get up to about 60, 65 at the most. Perfect.
Yeah.
And when you looked around, everywhere you looked, there was a mountain. He was up there in the valley, just beautiful.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I love that part of the world.
Unfortunately, Grandma died, and there was relatives, people just waiting for her to die so they could grab that land. That land was worth a lot of money. Anything out there in the mountains was worth money. So as soon as she was gone, they said, no, the family wants to put this on the market, get their money out of it. So that was the end of that tournament. They're in 20 years, 79 to 98. I made the last one. That was one of my proudest trophies ever. Last one they had. Does this show up very well on your screen?
Yeah.
Can you read the logo or the medal plate?
Grandmasters first place.
First place Grandmasters. That was quite an honor. Bill Paulson. It was the same weekend as the Culture Clash that Bill told you guys about, where the U.S. played the Swedes or whoever was from Europe. So Bill was out there with me that weekend. So.
That's a very impressive trophy for.
I was pretty proud of that. I actually had one hanging on the wall, and it wasn't even the first place. It was a second place. A guy named Dale Bell lived here, moved up to Kansas City after a while. He ran a tournament here and called it I forget what he called it, roll it out, back it up. We had a safari backwards course at Herman. So he had a course where you played one round backwards, and then you had to throw a roller every drive in the next round. But he found somebody that would make a wooden disc like this. Only he didn't have it engraved. He just had some metal plates glued on the front of it.
There used to be
pretty cool, but the fact that it wasn't a winning trophy doesn't mean near as much as this other one does.
I tell you what, bud, that's my favorite 3 from the tee we've ever done.
Well,
yeah,
good.
that's great.
Like I said, I've only had 2 years to think about it, right? So, I've heard you ask all these other guys, but I can think of a lot of other favorite memories.
You knocked it out of the park. Well, you don't have to stop with one. We got a couple questions we got to ask, but that's all we're going to ask about is those memories, and I'll kick it off with the. You're one of the first guys that I was exposed to when I started playing disc golf in Wichita, right? So, a story that I haven't really ever heard, and I know you were an integral part of it. Disc golf in Wichita. How you talked about the course at Riverside Park, but was that the first one? How did it all start? Who was the key?
I don't know how much of this history you've heard. You've had guys like Bill and people on, but I was never an organizer. Hey, let's do this, let's do that. I was a follower. Somebody would say, "This is what we're going to do," and I'd jump right in and follow along with them. But y'all know, Riverside didn't work out. Unbelievable. They had 18 holes. We wouldn't even think about putting a 9-holer on that same property now. But so neighbors said, "Get this thing out of here." Everybody's throwing beer bottles all over, peeing in our trees, and it was bad. It was a bad situation. So the city, a guy named Mitch Mitchell, guy that built the big ditch. You go over the big ditch around Wichita, you'll see Mitch Mitchell, whatever they call that. He lived on 4th Street. So his backyard backed up to the course there at Oak. And he knew they had a problem. Oak Park was a problem. Herman Hill wasn't too good, but Oak was bad because it was so secluded. So they said, let's put these disc golfers, since they're just drinking beer and pissing in the trees and whatever the neighbors said we were doing. So let's put them in these other parks and see if we can kind of clean those parks up. So that's how it became Herman Hill and Oak Park. And they took 9 out of each, put 9 baskets in each course. And then the club not the club, but the golfers said, they said, "We got enough room down here, Herman Hill Park. We could easily," because the 9 they put in were just on the north side of that road. They weren't even on that south side by the river. So I don't know if I'm getting ahead or what's the rest of the question, but anyway, there was guys like Bill and of course Mark Jennings, the one that brought the courses into Wichita the first time. He was involved. He was kind of like the spearhead of it. And guys like Harvey, they were already into some disc golf down there. They were playing object golf and stuff in Winfield, so that they jumped right in and tried to get involved too. So we said, well, we got to have a club, we got to be organized. We got to have some leagues, have events. Let's do stuff. So that's how started at Herman Hill. The first tournament at Herman, I think, was in '89. I think they tried to have a tournament that first year. They brought in portables, and I had some of these dates. I think it was '89, but they had a tournament in 18. Well, they used portables, so the layout was different. The original 9 were there, and we had a tournament at Herman Hill, and actually backing up to Riverside, they had 3 tournaments at Riverside. And I don't know how the word got out on these things because I wasn't part of that, but I guess there was a newsletter that Rothstein out of Columbia, Disc Golf World News, put out this little newsletter. And so people had a way of finding out that there were golf events going on. So we had a tournament there at Riverside, and there was people coming from out of town. I couldn't believe it. People are driving from out of town to do this. This is crazy. And one of the first guys I saw was out there warming up. Big dude comes walking up, big old knee brace on his leg, and he had a girl with him. And the girl had a Rolling Stones t-shirt. And I had the exact same Rolling Stones shirt from the concert back in '81 or so in Kansas City. And that was Bruce Hudson and his girl, Terry Clark. And there was a guy named Mark Martin, really strange dude.
Yeah.
And some guy from Arkansas, I think his name was Reynolds. He won the event. So I said, man, guy came from Arkansas to do this. So there ain't no money in this. So, isn't it? Hard to believe. And another event later, a bearded guy out of Harrington, Dennis Voschultz, showed up. And he was pretty good. And him and Harv had a playoff to win. Harv beat him in a playoff. And those guys are obviously better than most of us. But that was the first events I remember in Wichita. Herman Hill event. We had guys showing up from out of state for that thing, but I found out that if you was 35, you could have your own division. And so I think there was 3 of us at Herman Hill, 3, maybe 4. One of them was me. It was me, Dennis, and some other guy, Max Hilders, I think. We was our own division. And Dennis and I tied 2 rounds at Herman Hill. We was tied. 7-hole playoff. I beat Dennis 7-hole playoff. I don't think I beat Dennis again for about another 8 years or more. Must have lit a fire in Dennis.
Oh my gosh.
I remember about the 4th or 5th hole, Dennis was up there by the basket parked, and I thought, this is over. I'm 50 feet out. I threw it in, pushed it for another couple holes, and then Dennis hits a tree, and I win it. So, it's huge money, too. Must have been 50, 60 bucks. That was a lot of money.
Oh my gosh.
A story.
But, well, things evolved. We raised money. People went and talked to their insurance people or their hairdresser and raised money to buy the other 9 baskets and got them in at Herman. And Oak Park stayed a 9-holer. And Oak Park's right down the road from me. So I'd be over there at Oak Park all the time after work, except on league night, I'd go to Herman. A lot of nights at Oak Park all by myself. I was the only one. I can't remember. It was just mad. I can't believe how many times I was at Oak Park playing golf by myself.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around long enough to remember that Oak was just a 9-hole golf course, and I remember there was almost nobody that played there.
No, the holes were short, and they still had the problems. It was mainly the weekends when the crowds would show up.
Yeah,
man, weekends it'd just be a parade, constant parade around that loop. The drive around 4th Street. That's why the guy that lived Mitchell complained. He said they come down my street, take a right, go back through the park, come back around, and half the cars or more had Missouri and Oklahoma plates. I guess those boys had their own little newsletter. Told them where to
go. Well, what do you remember? What year we put the other 9 holes in Oak Park?
No, Bill would know more about the date.
Something like
right
that.
Around 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
It was a while. I do remember a few other things before that. Well, they started. I don't know exactly the order things happened, but guy in the city, in charge of the parks, he had some money. He got a hold of some money to beautify the park, and Oak was his project. And that's how we ended up with the rocks around hole 6 and 16. There was never a pond on 6 and 16. They put those rocks in there. They tried to make it. They dug out that archway down there underneath that arch and tried to make that a pond. That was never there in the day. And so anyway, they were tearing that up, And then they rebuilt the bridge, the 11th Street Bridge. I think the plaque on the bridge says 2000, right at 2000, 2001. So they used that whole area where 15 is for their staging, all the equipment, all the stuff. And they didn't even move our basket. Our basket was there surrounded by junk. Yeah. And that was hole 8. And hole 9, I think they were starting to dig out the pond, make that hole bigger. They thought it was going to be just a big natural waterway from the cement pond all the way down to the bridge, all the way through. But the only way that was going to happen is if it rained a whole lot. And it never happened. It just never turned into what they thought it would. But it really messed up the course. Now Duck, one year when he was running stuff, a few years, he was running River City weeklies. And most of the time it was Herman Hill, but it'd get a hold of some portables. Sometimes we'd go over there to Oak Park and set a few portables up. And sometimes we'd go over there and put one by the cement pond and throw across it, or down that dike where hole 17 is. So I just was fed up with nothing was happening and our basket was going to get messed up there. So one Sunday I just got this guy, Mojo, Chuck Smith. Yeah. I got him. I said, let's go move those baskets. I knew better. I wasn't the kind of guy to ask permission. I said, let's just go move them baskets. We've played over there across that pond before. So I went and got him and we dug out that basket, had it almost out of the ground, and we'd already dug up the hole. So when we got it out, we'd have it ready to drop in the hole. We had a hole dug on 17 and 18. And I was digging that, and we had it about out of the ground. Here come the cops. Somebody saw us, called the cops. So it took a while to convince that cop that we weren't stealing that basket. We were moving it out of the way because it was in the way. I said, the construction guys wanted this out of here. It's going to get messed up, so we're moving it for them. And so I'm the one who put the basket on hole 17 and 18, which was back then was hole 8 and 9. Mm-hmm. So I take some credit for that. I'm proud of that. I got away with it without asking permission. And
stayed out of the pokey on top of it, apparently.
Well, that wasn't the first time, but I can remember 3 times specifically where the cops showed up when I was in the park doing stuff. When they dug up the Herman Hill and putting in the water center, the same thing happened. They put a big construction fence around the whole project and fenced in some of our baskets and sleeves. And so I just thought, well, we got to get these out of here, save the sleeves mainly. So they took the basket. We said, well, can we get our basket out of that fenced area? And they let us get it out. So I was over there one day digging up the sleeves so we could save the sleeves. And it wasn't one cop. There was 6 of them. They came from every direction, driving right up into the. So I guess they thought I was going to start another riot or something. I was by myself. And they were under. Whoever called it in must have made it sound like I was just doing something terrible. They saw what I was doing and they let me finish what I was doing. Dug up some sleeves. Then there was that time we was trimming over there. This was more recent, but. I got some guys. I guess I still had the truck, so it wasn't that recent. We were trimming limbs, getting ready for the keeper, one of the events there at the Oak. And so I drove the truck down over the dike. We'd cut some limbs. I drove the truck down there and threw all the limbs in the truck. And we was driving back. We was already back to the road. Here comes a cop, pulled me over. He asked me what I was doing. I said, we're cleaning up the course, getting ready for our tournament. What do you mean tournament? Well, disc golf. We're disc golfers. Cop had no idea. I mean, that course had been there for 10 years by then. Yeah. He had no idea what we was talking about. They always get on the radio and call it in. Hey, these guys doing such and such. Of course, they let us go again. Yeah, I see Mark I wore this just for Mark. You guys see my shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark was the first guy I ever knew that had a computer. He's up in his dad's office downtown Wichita, an oil man. So he did a lot of the early logos with his computer.
What year's on that shirt? Do you know?
393. We always put all the schedule on the back. I don't know if you can see anything, but it always had the schedule on the back of our shirts back when there was like 10 events.
You'd have to wear a dress now to take care of that.
Small print, nobody can tell.
Yeah,
what are we up to now?
So Mark, that's my favorite.
That's a
Either
good one.
told me or somebody said those Kansas letters were like the Kansas band's letters, and then
Mhm.
he said, "No, they ain't nothing alike." But I think the pattern was similar.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Oh,
Oak Oak got expanded not too long after that. We finally got city. The Riverside people didn't want us over there on the other side. We were kind of hidden, the front nine over there, the loop. But when you get on the other side where the people drive through every day, they didn't want to see nothing. That's why we didn't have T signs forever. They didn't want nothing, no benches, no T signs. They'll put up with a basket and a pad. But, so we honored their request. We didn't ever push to, put anything else over there.
it's awesome. You've seen it all here in town, bud.
I've been here. I've been here
Let's
for
go
as long.
outside of town. Let's talk about the early days of the Kansas Disc Golf Association. I know you're an important part of getting that all going. I know Bud and Harv and Dennis and several people. Let's
It
hear a
was
little bit about that.
mainly Mark and Harv that got it all organized, and they they reached out to other people, other places that had courses. But the whole thing was play an event at every course in the state, all 10 of them, that we knew about. So that was the whole idea. Let's have an event. Now, as far as, when you start something like that, you say, well, what are we going to do? What are we working for? Well, let's have a point system. Let's keep track of who played. And I don't know if we did that the very first year, but that's what it evolved to, where you kept points and you tried to raise money. That became one of the big things right away. We've got to raise money. If we're going to have something to give away at the end of the year, we got to have some money. So the old $2 a person started. We said, we'll have people sign up, $25. We'll try to get them a shirt and a disc or whatever, and you'll be a member, and we'll keep track of your points. And that all started then. We $2. We wanted $2 an event, $2 from every person. So that kind of went over down here. We went up to Topeka, I remember, and we said, well, how are we going to get that $2? And well, it's going to have to be voluntary. So they built a box. Mark had a box with a slot in it, and you put your name on the envelope and drop your $2 in the box. And if you wanted credit for your points, your name, when we picked the box up, you better have $2 in the box. And people were pretty good about it, but we, Harv especially, he dreamed bigger. He said, we need to get $2 from everybody, and most events back then, 30, 40 people, that's about the turnout. So that ain't much, $2 a person. People will pay that. Those people up Northeast, they didn't like that at all. They weren't too big on giving us $2 a person out of their purses. So I'm not sure if everybody was on board with it, but if we pulled it off somehow. I think the box thing. So we can't make everybody pay, but we'll get $2 from those that were or will. So, but yeah, we try to come up with a fair system where, and it was hard to do because some events had 10 people. How are you going to give anybody credit, and nobody's going to show up? There's no incentive to go to an event. You have to drive 2 or 3 hours. You're not going to get any points. So we came up with participation points. How many participation points do you get as opposed to beating people? So every year we'd figure out how it worked out and try to balance it out. And we need more participation points. And said, how are you going to work in the Frizz? There's 300 people at the Frizz. You go to the Frizz, you get 300 points. There was a lot of logistical things and work it out. I know we'd talk about it every year afterwards. How did this work this year? One of the things I got out of that, we'd go to the trophy shop. Back then, you had to go to the trophy shop to get trophies. This is one of my first ones. It says 1991 first place Masters Division. Big old nice trophy. We'd go all out. This thing must have cost us $10 for one this size. And we'd give out a third, all the way down 4th, 5th place. But I got first place Masters that year. and Dennis got second place. Dennis beat me every event he was at. I never beat Dennis once. And I thought, well, this ain't right. I went to 10 events. Dennis went to 5. He beat me every time he was there. So I kind of, I was glad I won it, but it just didn't seem like that was the best system. So we tried to balance it out every year, try to figure out what's better and what's worse. They still mess with it. I don't know what all's going on now. And I know now, you mentioned earlier, you're getting points. You can win the whole Oz tour by just going to food drives now. Which
in some divisions you could, because
before, yeah. So
like a kids division or a women's division, they don't have a chance to really compete against.
And I ain't got nothing against anybody playing in the city. You put out some rules and you go to the events, and that's the way it works out. So that's why we'd always try to, balance it out, see what do we do wrong, what do we need to change. I can start getting grumpy on you now if you want me to.
No, let's not. This is going too well.
Well, when you've been around a while, you see how things evolve, and it's not always the way you think it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, I always thought it should be the better golfer, the guy that's got the most wins or performances overall, instead of just the guy that showed up every time.
Yeah.
They came up with things like the Frizz Rocker and things. The guy ought to get some credit if he goes to that many events and doesn't win. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any right system to make it good for every player, because there's so many people that are KDJ members that sign up at the kickoff and then never even play a tournament.
Right.
So,
and then they came up with, and like, again, I'm not going to, say anything negative about somebody that's playing the system, but there were guys that came up with last chance. You could show up to the last event, pay your money, win, show up at the end of the year deal or the finals.
mm-hmm.
You're paid for next year already. You played one event that year. That was another thing that I never really agreed with, even though I was part of it from the start. Well, you went to the finals, and if you show up at the finals, we're throwing the money in for next year. You're guaranteed next year. Well, I ended up having a hockey kid. I had to go to hockey events in November. It was always November, and there was always a hockey tournament. So, I won my division 4 or 5 years in a row. I got the disc here to prove it. I can show them to you. You guys started making these fancy things at BD, these Oz Tour trophies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 2011. They all had Oz themes on them, 2012, the Tin Man. I had 5 consecutive years with my name on them and everything. And I think out of those 5 years, all of these say, first place, Buddy Kassner on them and all that. I think out of all those 5 years, I made one finals because I had to go to a hockey game every Sunday or every weekend or whatever. So I always thought that one, if the guy wins, isn't he just as entitled to next year's, just because he can't make the Sunday deal? I ain't complaining. It just, I got money. I could pay if I wanted to. So it just seemed like it wasn't quite the way it should be. It might have made sense when everybody went to the events. You weren't going to miss the finals.
I'm with you, Bud, on the whole competition thing. I've said for a lot of years that the guy that plays the best should get rewarded the most. But
it was just kind of irritating. I thought, well, you're going to give me a disc, but the $30 entry meant a lot more to me than the disc. So I was never a big trophy guy myself. What are you gonna do with him? I'm sitting down in my basement. Nobody else is ever going to see him. I had a big old shelf, kind of like you got behind you, full of crap. Here's another one I got. This is the other one I like. This is even bigger than the other one. That's just 1999 on it.
I remember this one.
You see these trophies, these disc throwers? None of these trophies had those on them. I had a pile of these things down there, and I got. Oops, sorry. Anyway, I got tired of looking at these trophies that didn't mean nothing. So I tore them all apart one time, took all the ones that had cups, and I had like 5 of those. See, nobody liked those trophies because they were made for ultimate players. It's got the guy with the big sidearm out there. Well, I'm a sidearmer now, so I thought, well, these are cool. So I tore all those little trophies that I had with those on them apart and started making my own trophies.
Well,
just the ones that looked the coolest,
Well, let's talk about another trophy.
I want to show you my very first trophy I ever won. Very first trophy I ever got. Can you guys read this? Does it show up?
Turn it just a little bit. October Frizz, 89. Is that what it says?
Yep. See what it says?
First place doubles.
First place doubles. Harvey made that. And it was a random flip event, and I flipped Harvey. And Harvey and I won.
If you get Harv, there's a good chance you were going to win in '89.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't nothing I had anything to do with. But I always thought, that's a cool little trophy. Look, he cut that out at his shop and made that little plaque. And that was my very first trophy.
Fantastic.
Well,
Mark Jennings bought a table saw and a router. Had it right there in his house by the living room. And he was big on that, and he wasn't a woodworker, but he made these things. He had these minis made up that everybody got. So he made these trophies, and they're really nice. They're routed out. 3 grooves on the sides. And can you see the mini? He had that mini.
Those are good trophies.
Kansas, yeah. And what's that one say?
Olathe Open, first place Masters.
Yeah. So that would have been like early 90s. And boy, we would show up. We would make the schedule out and say we're going to have an event at these courses. And we would go, Harv and me, Mark, whoever, we would drive to these courses and run a tournament. Boy, those guys did not like that.
I can imagine not.
They pretty much told us, they said, we'll run our own tournaments after this. But hey, I think I TD'd. He was making little TD appreciation trophies, same with a plaque. He would give you a little plaque, just a TD appreciation. I got one from Hutchinson and Lindsberg. Yeah, we would just show up and run a tournament. A lot of these courses, towns, there wasn't nobody in Lindsberg that played, and Hutch was kind of hit and miss if you had anybody over there.
Well, how did when and how did the whole KDJ Cup become the Kassner Cup?
I had nothing to do with that. Just letting you know, we was having our awards banquet in I don't know what year it was, maybe 96, something, 97. Harv and I had started. Jennings, left Wichita to Texas around 92, 93. And so then it became me and Harv were running it. And, we were scheduling the first events or banquets, end of the year banquets. I think Emporia hosted a few of the first ones because they was the last tournament of the year. And then I know Salina did one, but we started having them in Wichita because nobody else wanted to be a November tournament. People wanted their tournaments earlier. So yeah, we was doing the banquet. Somebody found a hotel hospitality place out on East Kellogg. Show up there and got the trophies. Harv comes in with this cup with my name on it, Kassner Cup. I said, "What's this for, Harv?" He said, "Well, you deserve it, bud." I wasn't too happy about it. I thought it was going to be the Kansas Cup, something like that. But he already had it made. What are you going to say? It's hard to not be appreciative of something. But his thinking was I had went through this procedure to donate some bone marrow to a guy anonymously, and he just thought that was the greatest humanitarian thing ever. So but I thought the private life should be separate from the disc golf life. There wasn't no reason to put my name on that, but it's on it.
Well, I'm very glad that it's on there. I think you're deserving of that, and I think that the Kassner Cup will be way more important in 30 years than something called the Kansas Cup.
Absolutely. And
like I said, it was a shock to me. I wasn't expecting. He even gave me a big old 3-foot tall trophy that said humanitarian award or something on it. But need to pass that on to somebody else, make another one. Like I said,
Well,
that stuff down in the corner in the basement, someday daughter's going to throw that in the trash can, and then what? So,
I'm not giving up bone marrow for that thing, so you can check me off that
well, that was
list.
just one of those things that just happened, So
Well, we got a
but as
few
far as
questions
running the
from.
Oz tour, back then there wasn't no. Well, there was a newsletter. Jennings, he had access to printers and computers, so he put out the early newsletters because he had access, and he didn't have he's living off old man's money, and he didn't he had an office downtown, but he had plenty of time to do other stuff. So he was doing there, but when he left, Harv started having to write them. Of course, then the stories got better, and
Oh boy, I bet.
Harv would have his wife Connie type them out, and he would give me the type things. I would go to Kinko's and make however many copies I needed, and fold them and staple them and address them and put a stamp on them and mail them out. When you signed up for the KDGA, you filled out your registration form, which was half a piece of paper, half. And so I had a stack like this, about 50 of those registration forms, and I cold called people. I would sit down there in the basement on my landline and just start calling people. Hey, we've got an event coming up. Try to make it if you can. And I got away with it kind of with my wife because it costs money to call somebody out of Wichita. And my wife ran the phone bill because she worked at the phone company. So she knew every call I made and how long it took and how much it cost. So I'd get the word every month. This is how much money you cost us this month by calling these people. I said, well, I'll get it back. I can get $6 or $8 out of the club account. Pay us back. I don't know if I ever did, but I always told her I could. She got half price. That was a big benefit. It only cost her half what it would cost somebody else to call somebody.
Man, how the world has changed.
I remember sitting down there calling people. Just, come to our tournament. My favorite thing I did back then was I ran the ice bowl at Oak Park. And I would it was hard to do. I had to use the 9 baskets that were in the ground, and I would scramble anything I could, try to find 9 more baskets. I had to find people out of town from McPherson. Winfield always brought a few, and I knew about where every basket in town was that somebody had. If they had one, I knew about it. But I would go into the woods. And back then you could drive through the woods. That road went through there. Mm-hmm. I had every year I'd change it up. Some holes were the same every year. And that was one of the best times, the ice bowls at Oak Park. I'd rent the Girl Scout house, give the Girl Scouts $35 and have the building. Dave Elston would cook chicken wings out in the patio. They had a grill out there, a cooker. We'd build a fire, and I always made a big pot of chili and hot chocolate in the kitchen. And those were the best times, the ice bowls. It was always the Sunday before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I remember them well.
Sunday off between the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and that was always Ice Bowl weekend. And the Ice Bowl was ran by or started by Rothstein out of he was in Columbia, then Kansas City. He put out the Disc Golf World newsletter, and I think the food thing was some people, Indiana or somewhere, incorporated, let's raise money or collect food. So he jumped on that, and all of a sudden it was try to see how much money you could raise for your food charities. So we thought, well, we'll take $5. That's quite a bit. We'll take $5 out of every entry. So I was taking, $230, $250 over to the food bank after the Ice Bowl. Always felt pretty good about that. I think it really helped the disc golfers get a little bit of a better reputation.
Yeah.
But those were some of the best times, those Ice Bowl events.
Yeah.
What happened there was, man, we had a beautiful winter. That last one, it was just beautiful out. 70 degrees in the end of January, perfect weather. And we were getting more and more. We were getting some guys moved to Wichita that played golf in college or whatever. And so we were getting more people that had a lot of spare time. And because it was so nice, I used to just go in there the day before the tournament and kind of lay out what I was going to do. And nobody knew about the holes ahead of time. Well, I made the mistake going in there and planning it and doing it way too early that week. So a bunch of these guys were going around with me, following me around and seeing how nice it was. So after the event, they just kept on doing it. They kept playing through the woods. And then they went over there where hole 7 is now, that 7 short tee. They said, this isn't very good. Let's make a path through the trees. So they were cutting trees and doing a lot of stuff that got club in big trouble. One of the things they did is they were throwing through the woods and they hit the bird watcher. There was a bird watcher. You guys know who he is, Paul. He's still there after 25 years. He's still there, but yeah, they hit him with the disc. So he had some words with the city. We were told never to go in the woods again after that. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I wish we could. I know we can't, but I wish we could bring back the old stuff through the woods at Oak Park one time for a food drive. If we could do that, I'd be.
The woods aren't nothing like they used to. All that invasive huckleberry stuff grew. Used to be in the wintertime, you could look right through them woods and see the cars going back and forth on the road over there by the river. There was no low vegetation or nothing back then. So it was real easy to play through the woods.
Yeah.
And we only had one really bad one where it was a lot of snow on the ground. And that was still fun because you was in the woods. And even I never played the regular holes. I'd use the baskets, but would go back into the trees and throw out of the trees into the toward the basket. It was fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The food, just a really good time. I mean,
Let me get to a question that Mike had, Bud.
You got the question?
Yeah, from Mike Junod. I think this is a great question. I'm excited to hear the answer. It says, what keeps you playing disc golf after all these years? And it's not just disc golf. Every time I go play Oak Park, which isn't very often, I can almost guarantee your old butt's going to be driving through there, seeing what's going on. So what is it that keeps you playing disc golf?
Well, it's easy to drive over to Oak Park. It's just right down the street. So usually about any time I'm going to the grocery store or got to go somewhere, I'll drive through the park just to see if anything's happening or something's happening that shouldn't be happening or something like that. But so that's why I'm there. I don't go too many places anymore, but I just love the game. I always said I'd be playing disc golf if there was never, ever money involved. And one of the worst things I hate about disc golf is keeping score. And the older I get, the less and less I hate it. When I go play disc golf, especially by myself, I'll throw 3 shots on the tee, go out there and pick up a disc, play one of them to the basket, and most of the time pick up my discs and go on to the next hole. If I'm 30, 40 out, I might try to run a putt at it. But people ask me, what'd you shoot? What'd you get on that hole? I don't know. I'm not keeping score. I love to, like I said, I played Frisbee way before I found disc golf. Just love to throw the Frisbee. Me and my friend we'd try to throw left-handed. We'd try to see how much hyzer or anhyzer we could put on the disc and still hit the guy and stuff like that. So it's just throwing that disc, watching it fly. The competitive part was never my thing. It was the throwing the discs.
And watching a lot too. That's one of the things, over the last 25 years that I've been in disc golf in Wichita, more than that actually now. Wow, how the time goes. But if there was something going on, I mean, if we were playing, Smitty, you and I know, if we were playing a tournament in Wichita and it was the roundup or the doodah or keeper or something like that, you knew Bud was going to be out there watching somewhere along the course. He's camped out somewhere. So I mean, it's not just playing; it's disc golf in general, right?
Like I said, love to watch crazy play. I watch the best players. I want to watch the best players play. And they're not usually playing with me in our divisions. Those aren't the best players. So, when those guys started coming to Emporia, man, that was great. Go watch the best guys. I've been to Kansas City. I'd seen Climo and Stokely battle it out in KC before. Mm-hmm. Worlds, what was that year that Jenkins won up there in Kansas City? I went to 2 or 3 rounds there. Thornfield and Waterworks. I remember watching them play all those courses. So it's all about throwing that Frisbee, watching it fly. I wish I could still do it.
Well, you have the opportunity to watch disc golf at Oak Park this Sunday if you want, bud.
Weather don't look good.
I said the same thing. I'll watch the video coverage.
I'm getting where the circulation's getting bad. My nose is about to fall off because of the no circulation. My ears are getting real long now, and fingers don't work. So that cold's really affecting me now.
Bud, what's your PDJ number? That's what Mark Jennings would like to know.
4319. Mark Jennings knew about stuff. You know, he knew about the PDGA and stuff, and he told me he was showing me, hey, you can get this newsletter. It tells you what's going on. So he showed me the stuff you got, the little mini they sent you with your name on it. It was a mini midnight flyer back in the day. You had your number right on it. And they even sent you a lightning disc that had your name emblazoned in it. I lost that up in a pine tree in Colorado because I was never a collector. People ask me, man, you must have a lot of cool discs. And every disc I got my hands on, I was throwing it. There was no such thing as a collector disc in my book.
Same way with me. Every disc I've ever owned is either in my bag, in a box, or lost somewhere along the way.
The ones I put away that had the old KDGA logos on them and stuff, they were just all beat up, got gashes in them because you hit signs, you hit stuff. I was going to show Smitty some things that I was. You got one of these, don't you, Smitty?
Oh, yeah. Upside down.
Yeah.
I do have one of those. That's a.
What's yours say on it? Amateur, doesn't it?
It probably does. What is there a year on that?
No, I think
do the math.
I think Garrison ran it and they didn't PDGA it.
Yeah, I remember Chad did the tournament. Had those those trophies.
That's probably one of the last times I ever beat you because we weren't in the same divisions, but my score was better than yours. and then Baseman did this one here. That's the other one. It says first place Masters it's got a year on that, I think.
Oh, the Frontier Open again.
Yeah, 2000. I went, if it hadn't been for that Colorado experience, my favorite memory would have been Hayes. Because the first year I went to Hayes in 89, it was the 5th annual. I said, man, you guys been doing this for 5 years and don't know anything about it. I'd have been here, if I'd have known about it. And that was a 1-day event. And it was in the little shelter house there by T1. And they had a keg of beer and they had some food. And those were the nicest people I'd ever met, the Hayes people. Ron and Karen and Bruce and Alan and Les Dreiling and them guys, they treated you like family. They were just so glad that you drove all the way out there and played with them and stuff. And I went to 15 straight Hayes events before I missed one. And then I've been back to some of the more recent ones with all the revisions and the way they do it now. But yeah, that was a not miss. That was the one event I wouldn't miss. Of course, I went to every Oktoberfest for 25 years too. But I was kind of a regular in Winfield. Winfield one time when they said we got to start planning ahead. We can't just wait till the week before, and so they decided they would have a monthly mini. I don't know if they called it a munchkin or something. And they would just set up baskets behind Rick Leake's house or somewhere else, little temporary stuff. And everybody would throw $10 in and the money would just go into the pot, save up money for the prize. So they had 11 of them once a month. I went to all of them. I was the only person that went to every one of them. And I lived in Wichita. Trying to do what you can. And plus those guys are all good guys. Closer to my age. People in Wichita kind of came and went. Some of the guys that I first met there at Riverside Park, a lot of them came and went. Two Away was one of them, but he kind of got off into family stuff for a while. Didn't see him much. Trying to think what else. Let me show you something else. Road trips. You guys.
This is my favorite part. I love
100%.
looking
Yes.
at this
Well-
these things.
Yes.
Well, back up. You know, when Harv started the Oz tour, it kind of was dying off around '96, and Harv said we got to get this going again. And so he reached out and got all these TDs and people to start doing events again. And I guess they had put some baskets up in Colby, Kansas, and he found out about them. They wanted us to come out there, so Harv and I said, okay, you know, we said we're going to go to all these events. So, God, we got up early in the morning, drove all the way to 5 hours. And Harv's an hour farther away than I am. Drove all the way to Colby, Kansas. And that little course they had around the little pond there, and it was windy and it wasn't much fun. And we did it. We come home and Harv said, we'll never do that again. There's a limit to how far you're going to drive to play a little dinky 9-hole course 5 hours away.
Villa Park, Kyle Klinger.
So anyway, I don't know if it was the next year, but they, or the committee, whatever was doing it, said, maybe it would work better if we have a twofer. Let's put two events together. So the next year, I think it was, Stockton had ran an event, and not Stockton, Norton.
Yeah.
Norton. That Stockton event, that's another cop story. Me and Harv going to Stockton. Anyway, so the next year, I got some guys that said, hey, I get my wife's car. She had a really nice Buick Riviera. Boy, that was a nice car. And so I got Rich Swint and Owsley and Nick Bunch. And we headed off on a Friday night heading to Colby, Kansas. And got all the way out there. I think we must have stopped somewhere. I don't know where we stopped. So the division, we get out there and it's me and Rich. And there might have been one other guy, old guy or something. But we played 2 rounds, get to the last hole. Rich has me beat by 1. I beat him on the last hole and get this nice little Kyle Klinger trophy. He made this little basket out of something. First place Masters, Villa High. Well, that's a cool little trophy. So the next day we drive over that night. We drive over to Norton, and we pull in. We say, let's play a quick doubles round. Said be me and Rich against Owsley and Nick for supper. And where we drilled them. Rich and I just put it on. And they were both pros, and we're old guys. And so we play the event in Norton. We come up to the last hole. Rich has me by 1 last hole. And was our last hole at Norton was off the top of the hill on hole 3, the little dinker going right down to the pavilion. Short little hole from the top of the hill. And Rich throws it down. He just knows he just has to lay up and get his par, and he's got me. He throws it down there. He's about 15, 20 feet away. I have to run it. I got to get an ace. So I run it. I'm 50 feet past him. I'm way up past it. I make my putt. And if you remember, I don't know if you ever, Smitty played those Norton baskets before. They wasn't much of a basket. So they even to get the disc to go in there, and I make this 50-footer, and Rich is over there saying, you can't make that. And so he's still got to make his gimme. He spits out. We tie. I beat him in the playoff. And so I beat him both days on the last hole. And then I get this from old Mordecai. And it's just a real heavy piece of wood. He said it came from a tree that was cut down on the course. He's got this little wire man with a penny for a disc. That's a penny. And that was just a cool trophy. So I came home that weekend with 2 really cool trophies for one event. That was a lot of fun. That was a good memory.
And got to beat Rich twice in the process.
On the last hole, that was the fun part.
and I'm sure Rich was being real humble about having the lead on the last hole.
Hey, I was just right. What was he going to say? Rich and Harv always had some kind of a deal. Rich and Harv always had that split deal, whatever.
Car split.
Yeah, that wasn't happening with me. But the Stockton thing, that was a different day. It might have been the same year, but said, well, we got it on the schedule. We got to go there. We said we'd go to all of them and help run them. Basically, some of those we were running them. So I said, Harv, that's a long drive. Let's go out the night before. I got a tent, and we'll go to Wilson Lake's, really nice place, State Lake. We can pull in there, stop. We'll only be an hour or so away from Stockton in the morning. We'd get up there, pull off high 70, get up to Wilson Lake. All you can see is water, both sides of the road, just nothing but water. The whole place was underwater. You couldn't even pull into the park. So, well, I guess we'll just keep going. So we get to Stockton. It's midnight. We'd never been there. We had no idea what the course was or anything. And you've been there. You've seen Stockton's course. It ain't much. So we said, where are we going to? Well, we got to get here in the park. There's a little ball diamond back behind the golf course. We pull in back there, got the headlights on in the car so we can put the tent up, one of those dome tents, and get the tent all up. We're in there, ready to crash out. Here comes the cop. Cop, you guys can't camp here. There's no camping allowed in here. What are we going to do now? So we have to start talking. Come on, man, we're running an event. He didn't know nothing about no disc golf event either, but we finally convinced him. He said, well, if we let one person stay, everybody's going to want to stay. We can't allow any camping in the park. He finally let us stay. He saw what we was up against. I said, well, we got to go somewhere. Is there any other place? No. He started telling us, so there's a state reservoir out here, half hour out of town somewhere. I said, that ain't going to work for us. Not this late. It's already after midnight. We got away with it somehow. We was able to stay.
Oh my gosh! First time I went to Stockton, but I pulled into the other course.
The prison?
Yeah, I just pulled right in there. It's like minimum security. I just whipped it right in off the highway, and I'm just driving around. I'm like, something is not right here. And I just finally
we heard about the prison. We heard about it. I don't think I ever saw it, but we heard there's a prison course.
There's a course at a prison?
Yes.
I think the Stockton prison has some baskets out there.
I think I don't know that there's murderers and stuff there. There's probably guys there for.
Well, it's still prison.
Oh, but there's not like a big brick wall or anything. It's just a little bitty fence.
Fence with some barbed wire, I think.
Yeah, I just pulled right in there like I own the place. No cop though.
I got some other stuff to show you. You know what this is, don't you, Smitty?
Yep.
That was one of my good ones. That was one of the best events anybody ever came up with. He put a lot of thought and time into planning all that. I was pretty impressed with what he did to get that going.
Yep.
And, I tried it with Ring. I tried it with Two Away, and we'd finish somewhere in the money, but never. Took a guy like Moss, Ben Moss. I rode his back all the way through that.
That was an 1880 trophy.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah, I didn't know what it was.
That's the Hawk.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that JD cut that out.
I think it's the only time they ever did one like that. But
yeah,
as far as I know,
yeah.
Everybody got a mini. Everybody that played got a little mini Hawk, little keychain deal.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Swede put more time into that than I could ever imagine putting into it.
More than you are.
Well, I tell you what, I also work.
Oh, I ain't saying you ain't. It's a lot of work to run any events, especially with the numbers we have nowadays.
Yeah, and and that one in particular, doubles events are harder in general.
I have no idea. It says Open Grand Masters Champion 2014, but I have no idea. It's got an air capital. I have no idea what that is. Here's one. It's probably one of my favorite trophies. I meant to show it to you earlier. You know what these are too, don't you, Smitty?
I'm not sure what that one is. It's got to be somewhere.
Those are Ron Rice's limestone trophies.
Oh, wow.
Those are with the Hayes Mini, that logo. I don't know if you can see it very well.
That is awesome.
Oh, you're telling me, and it's only a second place. I can't believe he made a second place trophy. But yeah, I was really proud of that. I'd seen him. He'd given them away for several years, and I thought, man, I'd like to have one of them.
That is cool. They should think about bringing that back for the Frontier Open.
Well, I'm sure that wasn't easy to make.
Are the little deals actually limestone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's got little grooves where the mini kind of slides in there.
Holds the mini, and that's a cool trophy.
It's real fragile.
I've told Ron multiple times that we're going to have him on, and you know how Ron is. He's he does not want to be on whatsoever, but I'm going to keep working on him.
He could tell you some stuff probably.
I know. That's why I want to hear it.
I've looked at the results for that tournament in Fraser, Colorado, and Ron had been there twice, but never the same year I'd been there. And I think Dennis had been there once before I had ever been there. So people knew about it. Like I said, the first one I went to was the 13th, so it'd been going on a while. But yeah, road trips probably the best thing about disc golf is road tripping it. Here's probably my favorite trophy now in the recent history. Can you read it very well?
Fly with me.
Pro Senior Grandmasters, Johnny Roberts Memorial. And behind Johnny's name there's a 20.
Mm-hmm.
20th annual Johnny Roberts Memorial. They usually ran it out of Arvada at they had a course, or a couple courses up in northern Denver area, but they would sometimes bounce around and use different courses for that event. Johnny Roberts was one of the original Frisbee players when they had Frisbee events, freestyling and things like that. He was an old freestyler, and he was a legend out there in Colorado. He passed away early. And that year, 2013, I went out with Bill and Dennis. Me and Bill and Dennis went out there and played and they didn't use the Denver courses. They played Bailey, which is now gone. That was my favorite golf course in Colorado, which is gone. Beaver Ranch, and then the Chew, which is Colorado Heights University in Denver. That was Doug Bierschet. What's his name?
Bierkus.
Yeah. Doug, the Jolly Duggar. He was different. He was an executive or whatever they call him at the college there, and it was his course. And that was a fun course for being on a college campus. And unfortunately, some of the tees and holes went right through the buildings or used entryways for tee pads and stuff like that. So, and they had a pretty good hill out in the back area where they were able to have some good holes too. But it was a pretty good layout, for what he had to work with. But it was right in the rough part of Denver. And you know how disc golfers are. They're going to want to go play disc golf if you got a golf course. So he had to have security. You had to either buy a season permit to get on. He had to really limit how many people he could let play that course. So
yeah, that's tough telling a disc golfer they're not going to play. They're gonna show up.
Well, I'd heard, he might let you play if you're an out of towner, So Johnny and I were out there, and I got to play with Johnny. We was out there, I think, looking at hockey gear or something. I'm not sure why we were there, but I walked in and told him, hey, I got my grandkid here, and I'd like to play your course. And he kind of asked me, who I was, who I knew. I said, well, I'm from Kansas, and I know some people there. And he threw a name at me, Tracy Reuter. I said, Tracy Reuter? Said, yeah, I saw him at Hayes yesterday or something like that. And he said, okay, you can play. I don't know why he knew Reuter, but
from the Frontier Open, I'm sure, or coming out to Tracy used to go play the Johnny Roberts Memorial quite a bit.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he knew who he was. Yeah, and I'd just seen Tracy at the Derby. I sat there at the bar at Buster's after that Forefathers or whatever that fling and Derby was. When they went to Buster's, I sat there at the bar with him, talked to him a while. So I played it, and then when me and Rick and Bill and Dennis went out there, we stopped there first in Denver because that was the third day, and we had to go on down the mountains for those other two rounds. But we stopped there to get a practice round, and we went in there, and he knew Dennis. I don't know if he'd ever met Bill, but he knew Dennis. But he was on his way to Japan. He said, yeah, you guys go play. I'm out of here. I got to go to Japan for something. But so we got to play a practice round on it. Then we went down and we rented a cabin. The Beaver Ranch had some cabins there that people could rent, and they were rough. There was 4 walls. That's what these were, 4 walls and some cots. And it was cold. In the mountains, it's cold. I don't care what time. And this was late September. It was damn chilly. I think Bill or something had went and bought some heaters, some of those plug-in heaters. They helped, but It was cold. You had to walk out to the outhouse to piss and stuff.
Roughing it.
Yeah, Johnny and I took Johnny out there years later, and I said, Johnny, there ain't no hotels out here, and I don't want to drive a long ways. We can get a cabin for $30-40. So I made Johnny stay in that cabin one night, and we were going to go back the next night too. And we went up to Buck Snort, and I knew the people at Buck Snort and told them what we were doing. And they said, well, you can stay here. You didn't have to stay down there. Well, Johnny was all for that. They had a nice warm place. Bill and I had been there before and stayed.
Yeah,
So,
Bill introduced me to those people and in at Worlds this last summer.
Lowell and Linda Deach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great people.
Yeah, they seemed really awesome.
They below, they're way up the mountain. Below at the same road that they live on at the bottom by the highway or the main road was Phantom Ranch. Phantom Ranch was a pretty cool place to play golf. When the guy that he had it on his property, he lived there with his wife and girls, and he had a really cool place to play golf there. And Johnny and I had been out there and played it one time, but it's all gone. He moved and it's all gone now. But he was establishing the Buck Snort course. It was a paintball. They had a couple of shacks up there. There's 4 walls, people play paintball, could hide in. And so he was up there putting baskets up there, but he wouldn't let nobody go up there. It was private. And they didn't have a house, but I guess the property was available, and the Dietzes bought it and built a house up there and stuff like that. But they kept the disc golf. And it's really well worth it. If you ever have a chance, go play Buck Snort. That is really a place to go.
I've heard it's really fun.
It's something else. Big rocks, a lot of elevation, real short holes, but real rocky.
Well, but I'm going to tell you, we got 10 minutes left before we get booted out of our streaming service here.
I might have showed you my show and tells. I don't know what else you want to hear. I'm sure I skipped some stuff.
Well, you've seen a lot. I'm sure you left quite a bit out.
Well, where's the part where the disc changed? You guys played before the disc changed. But sometime early 2000s, they started making discs that would go farther, and the wider rims and stuff. And so
last longer.
And I was going back to that last longer. Back in the mid 90s, when we were buying those discs from $5, they came out with what they called champion plastic, and they wanted $10 for those things. And I thought, who in their right mind would pay $10 for a disc and you could buy one for $5? What difference could it possibly make? Well, about a year later, hey, these champion discs don't look all beat up like those other ones we have. It started to make a little more sense after that, but still, it took me a long time to get to where I could shell out $10. I remember going to Dennis's tournament the first time, $5. Dennis beat me. He got 10. He gave me 5 back for second. I was real happy. That's great. That's the way they all ought to be. And so we showed up at a tournament after a couple of years, and Harvey, of course, was winning almost everything. Harvey, $20 entry fee. Man, that turned a lot of people off right away. Not a lot. People still played, but all of a sudden you had to pay $20 to play a golf tournament. It seemed kind of high to me. But it made sense if you were the guy that was winning all the time.
Now look at it.
But I was over there at Oak Park. I was trying to figure out how these guys getting this Anheuser flip on these discs. I was just throwing this shit out of them. Bam, there at my elbow. And I'd been messing around, with the little flick, the little 80, 100-foot flick shots with those wide rim discs. So I'd been messing around with it because I couldn't throw an Anheuser at all. So all of a sudden I was stuck. I couldn't throw a backhand at all. My elbow was about to go on me. So that's why I'm a forehander now. It took me a few years to figure it out, but I never went back. I never threw a forehand at all those first 15 years or so I played golf.
Yeah, that's all you do now.
Yeah, I can still feel it. I can still stick my finger there and feel that spot that hurts. And if I try to throw it very hard back in now, the whole arm feels like just no more muscle in that one. It's all on
So-
this one. It's all the
So
forehand.
just putts now is all it is.
Yeah, I can throw putts with the elbow don't extend. It's that snap when you extend it.
Well, Bud, this has been a blast, man. I was
Well, I'm
I
sure
was
I
a
could
little
come
worried
back.
you weren't gonna tell us any stories, or we're gonna have to prod things out of you. But
Well, road trips. I mean, there's been a lot of road trips. Bill and I went to Flagstaff, pulled a camper, and played Worlds. That was my only Worlds I ever played was Flagstaff, and hated it. Dennis flew in. Dennis was there with Annetta. They flew in, I guess. So Dennis had a car and he was doing business. Best part of that trip was I got to see my daughter and Johnny. Johnny was 4, and they lived in Phoenix. And I hadn't seen them for a while. So they drove up for a day, and the way the world schedule was, we had a free day. And spent a whole day with my daughter, went out and saw the Indian dwellings and the crater. I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to do anything.
we drove by the crater.
We drove by it. Yeah.
But then we had an afternoon. We drove down south to Flagstaff on that Black Canyon Road to the Slide Rock. There's a place where people slide through the rocks and the water. We did that. Me and Bill and Dennis were sliding through that rock and you get down to the end where it pools out there's a bridge, there's big cliffs. Bill and I went up there, people were jumping off these cliffs. Bill and I did that 80 feet, 85 feet. You always remember stuff like that. And Dennis wouldn't go up there. I think Annette said, "You ain't going up there," or something. But I jumped off once. That was a pretty good splash. Bill went back up and did it again.
I would have been out on that, Smitty, if you would have took me to the cliff diving. I'd have politely declined.
It's one of those things you stand there a while before you jump. You give it a lot of thought.
I wouldn't have got up there in the first place.
But yeah, road trip.
I went on one road trip with the Bud. You took me and Mossy, I think, to Norton.
You went to Norton with me?
Yeah.
Did I bring you back?
Yeah.
You was in the car with me that long and I don't remember it?
Yeah, I think we stayed with Kent.
I stayed at Kent's dad's house with Johnny one time.
I am positive that you took Mossy and I there one time.
Well, I sure don't remember. I seem like I got to remember that.
Boy, it must have been a hell of a good trip.
Man, that sounds like you've just put Smitty out of your memory, which so many people over the years have done.
I can remember most of the road trip. There were guys that went to Colorado with me that I don't remember. I didn't know them. You know, they'd hear, "Hey, you going to Colorado? I'll go." And one guy we just gave a ride. He was just out of high school, and he lived not too far from me. I don't know how he even found out about it, but he said, "Yeah, I need a ride to Colorado. I'll go with you." And he didn't come back with us. He was going out to stay.
Incredible.
Yeah, Bill and I have been on a few trips. We did another trip where Bill had been out there with his wife motorcycling, and he met a guy that owned a restaurant that was a disc golfer out there below Bucksnort. And he got to talking, and he said, "Come on out." And there's a lot of private courses. So Bill and I went out there and we played a bunch of private courses. That was just a really good trip. Bear Mountain and 2 or 3 others. Nothing like the mountains. I love the mountains. You guys are going to cut me off?
Well, you got 6 minutes, and you're going to get cut off by the softball.
Well, I don't know what else you guys have to say to follow up, but
no,
it's slowed down. I'm not getting out much anymore. I made 2 trips with Junod to Colorado, and one with Junod, 2 with Rob Fisher. He had a friend out there, so he wanted to go out and see his friend. I said, "Well, I'll go out and play golf with you if you want to play golf." And so those made a few trips with Johnny, a lot of trips with Johnny. We played some unbelievable places that you wouldn't normally go play golf. Yellowstone. That's a place not too many people have ever played golf in Yellowstone Park. Little 9-hole course that had 1 basket.
Really, 9 tees, huh?
First hole, you hit the fire hydrant. up there. Then you threw back down the hill and hit this little electrical box behind the dormitory. And so first time we throw up to the fire hydrant, then we throw back down to the electrical box behind the dormitory where the seasonal workers would stay. And so Johnny's, of course, running ahead of me. He runs down there and he gets about this far away from the building and he comes to a stop. There's a buffalo. There's a mama buffalo with her baby laying there about 10 feet from him. And I said, Johnny, let's get out of here. We're not going to finish this hole. And the other lady came out of the dormitory and said, yeah, this buffalo calved way too late in the season for the calf to live. And the herd kind of runs them off because they're food for the wolves. They don't want that baby around. So they kind of run the mama with the baby off. And that's why it was way over there by the buildings. So, and then you're standing there and you see deer running back and forth next hole over. But you get it. They had one basket in a little clearing, and I think they played to it from 3 different directions for 3 of their holes. But you get over to the side there, and you're standing there looking out over Yellowstone Lake with the Tetons in the background. Unbelievable scenery. You don't even have to play awesome. This. It was amazing. I was real fortunate. Awesome. We did that twice. First year, we stopped in Norton, played, headed to Yellowstone. Next time we went to Yellowstone, stopped at Norton and played Norton on the way home.
Oh, I remember that too. You guys coming through there on your way back. Was it for the tournament? Yeah, right?
Yeah, we just worked it out to where the Norton tournament was either going or coming. It's a place to stop on the road.
Absolutely. So, well, Bud, you're at 2 minutes. So if you have one more quick story, we'd love to hear it.
Well, shoot, I wish I had one ready for you. I'm not going to tell you.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of stories I could tell that don't want to tell.
Well, then this sounds like a perfect place to wrap it then, Bud.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I talked when me and Smitty, we've been talking about having you on for a while. And I think what I said was we can't, we're trying to have some of these, all you guys that were the pioneers of disc golf in Kansas, because we want to have this documented for, now it's on the interwebs for forever, and people can go back and find out how all this happened, 100 years from now. And like I told Smitty, I don't think we could tell the story about Kansas disc golf without talking to Buddy. So we're glad we finally got you on.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I was able to be a part of it all. Like I said, I was more of a follower than a leader. Like I said earlier, my event was the Ice Bowl. That's the only thing I can take credit for doing myself, organizing, putting the course up, doing it all. Of course, I still had help. There was always guys helping, sign-ups and things like that.
Well, you're still out there working all the time. I see you out there with your little loppers trimming. I saw you before the keeper, making sure Oak Park looked good. So
yeah.
Yes, sir. So
well,
you're the man, Bud.
The great Pete Cashin said at his Hall of Fame speech, he said he didn't want to hear somebody ought to do this, somebody ought to do that. He said, I'm somebody. So that's kind of the way I looked at it. I might not have the know-how or the equipment to do the things Pete and them guys do, but if you're somebody, grab some loppers, get out there and just don't cut any trees down. That's a no-no. Stay off the tee pads. I've tried to pass the word, but if it snows, stay off the tee pads. You can clean them and let the sun dry them, but don't walk on them. And there's no reason you can't throw from the side or the front of a pad that's got snow on it.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for those pads at Oak to, since so many people played on them, they're going to be frozen for quite a bit. It really
that's what happens. Once you walk on them, that stuff's on there forever.
Yeah.
Yes,
sir. All right, boys, we're going to get out of here with about 30 seconds to spare.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Bud.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Am I out?
You're out now.